Here he is, our Monday NHL insider from the Bob McCown podcast, the former executive producer, Hockey Night in Canada. It's our pleasure to welcome John Shannon back to the program. How you doing, John?
You forgot to mention I'm sitting in my lovely Audi.
Oh, there you go. Yes.
So,
it looks gorgeous. Look at that
there
interior.
You go. Big Q7, Can't go wrong with a Q7.
My vehicle choice as
Be
well.
still Blake's heart. So there you go. Surrounded by Audi drivers here. JT Miller did that Drop in the Gloves podcast last week, John, and I did my editorial on it Friday. I really have to commend the player and his representation. For 8 months here, they have shown the highest degree of patience and professionalism. We know JT is a fiery personality, but he's been able to keep that under wraps and just roll with the punches here as we mid-August and still no resolution to his final. I'm wondering how much longer this can go. We asked on Friday, will he be a distraction in training camp? And I voted no on that, but I do think at some point his future becomes a Vancouver Canucks at-large issue, not just a JT Miller issue. Your thoughts here as we move into mid-August still with JT Miller as a member of the Canucks?
Yeah, it still would not surprise me to see Miller start the season with the Canucks. Mind you, we haven't gone through that second phase of buyouts by every team yet that could finally, free up some cap space or move some dollars around to make a Miller trade possible. But I think that there's a real understanding that Miller can help the Canucks still. At the same time, proving his worth. And I think that helping the Canucks is not only on the ice. I think exactly what you talked about, Matt. When you have a player acting professionally, there is a level of, hey, maybe we want that guy around. I think that the more professional an athlete acts, the more attractive he can be to other organizations. All you have to do is look at what Pierre-Luc Dubois has gone through in Winnipeg. Not happy in Columbus, needed a trade. Then we hear stories that he's not happy in Winnipeg, needs a trade. And it kind of backfired on Dubois and Pat Brisson when it comes to those types of stories. I think that Nazem Kadri's comments after they won the Stanley Cup are back to bite him a little bit as well. When teams would say, well, I'm not sure I want that type of outspoken guy on my team.
Now, John, I think we've done away with the hometown discount, quote unquote, like for the incumbent player to stick around and accept a lesser amount. But in this town, Burroughs and Kessler, of course, had notoriously decent contracts and even called for such activity to occur. And yet JT Miller admits they are far, far apart. So I agree. I think he probably does want to play in Vancouver, but it's still not going to get to the point where he has that rarest of rare hometown discounts, is it?
Oh, I think you're right. It's the shelf life of a professional athlete and a professional hockey player is finite. You better cash in when you can. The biggest issue for Miller, unfortunately for him, as it was for guy like John Klingberg, was that his contract expired at a time when the collective bargaining agreement, because of the pandemic, created a flat cap, and unfortunately that's the luck of the draw. Well, when you look at teams, Blake, that were able to try to manage that out, was look what Tampa tried to do in those that flurry of signings they did earlier in July. With a guy like Eric Chernak and a few of those other guys, where they mitigated the flat cap for now, assuming that in 2024 the cap will go up, as Gary Bettman has suggested it would, and so you stay longer, you can get a much more manageable cap hit and get the player lots of money after 2 seasons from now. So you have to wonder. I'm sure that they've tried to do that, but at the same time, this is still a management group that came in with a plan, has a plan, doesn't want to change the plan. And then even though Jim Rutherford insists that Miller's could be part of it, they only have certain amount of dollars they want to spend on a guy like JT Miller.
It's been more than a month since the Canucks have had the ability to speak with Bo Horvat on an extension. He's going into the final year of his deal. It's all quiet there. Does this require a JT Miller resolution before they deal with Bo? And would you view the beginning of training camp as a deadline for an extension with Horvat, or could you see talks continuing into the season?
Oh no, I think that I don't think there is a deadline for Bo. I think that, I think that there's also other mitigating circumstances for Horvat. What's the defense going to look like by the time the season starts, or the time the trade deadline occurs? I don't think. I think that there's a mutual respect, a mutual understanding between Horvat and the Canucks and his agent, that I think that it's just we've created a system in a world now that as soon as you become available to sign, you sign. I'm not necessarily sure that that's necessarily the case. I mean, it certainly wasn't the case for Bruce Boudreau and Jim Rutherford. I'm not necessarily sure it's the case for a player anymore, even though we make this assumption all the time.
Mm-hmm. Nazem Kadri. Is this the week, John?
I think so. I think there is a resolution. I do think he ends up with the New York Islanders. I think that there are still some chairs to move on the deck of the cruise ship before that they can announce it. But it wouldn't surprise me that it gets done this week at some point. And I do, as I said,
I think the chairs are falling down beside you, is what it sounds like.
I just hope it's not gunfire, John.
No, I tell you what, I'm just standing on a street corner, and it's this is a town that there are two seasons, winter and construction. So we're in the middle of,
we know
we're in the middle of, well, you guys know your winters aren't as bad as ours, but everybody's having a good time now that the pandemic's over, and they got a bit of money to spend. Everybody's spending it.
So what was being sorted out? Like, this isn't done. This isn't in the drawer. They still had some negotiation left, Lou and Kadri's people.
I don't know that for a fact at all, Blake. What I do know is that Lou has to move some money too, and so that becomes the bigger storyline, is where is Lou moving some of the money to, and quite frankly, have Darren Ferris, the agent, and Nas, have they finally realized that his price point isn't as high as the one he expected to get, near $9 million. So, but it certainly sounds like everything is falling into place this week.
You say some deck chairs move there with the Islanders. Do you know, is there anybody shuffling out there, John? Do you know whether or not there's any kind of trade activity? I know it's a Lou organization, but do you know whether or not anyone is shuffling out to make room for Nazem Kadri there?
I'm going to have to. The answer is, you're right. I don't know the players. I don't know where he's going to find the space. But I think it's pretty reasonable to think that somebody has to go somewhere in order to free it up. If not a buyout of some sort, if Lou can do one. I'm not even sure Lou can do one this week. But or a trade of some sort. You're right. Yeah. How the information of the deal getting done this week has leaked out is absolutely amazing to me. But I got it from a very good source that it's going to happen very soon.
Yeah, and it's the two defensemen there, Dobson and Romanoff, acquired from Montreal at the draft, who are the RFAs seeking new contracts, as well as Kadri. But it has been the talk there amongst those who follow the Islanders is, hey, if you're bringing Nazem Kadri into the organization, is the center shuffling out? Is it going to be Jean-Gabriel Pageau? Is something going to happen with Brock Nelson coming off a 37-goal season? Or is simply somebody just going to shift to the wing and you'll have strength down the middle? So
well, and listen, I would hope that Lou's a little gun shy to be getting rid of defensemen again. I mean, look at the last time he gave away defensemen in order to stay cap compliant. And that was Devon Taves and Nick Leddy, both who have gone on to, Taves wins the Stanley Cup, and now Leddy, who's on his second team since the Islanders, has signed his, a 4-year extension with St. Louis. So, and we've joked about it before on this show, guys, that trade alone the Islanders got older and slower. And this is the National Hockey League. You have to get younger and faster in order to compete.
I got one more for him, Blake.
Sure.
And let's just move it on here. Have our friends back east discovered Nathan Rourke of the British Columbia Lions yet?
Oh, I listen. The answer is I have. I know I have. I mean, he basically grew up in Oakville, which is not far from where I live, and I certainly think that his numbers early in the season were so overwhelmingly good that people had to take interest. And I think the comeback victory on Saturday, which was finally in prime time Eastern time, which I think is important for the CFL at times. I think they know more about Nathan York in Hamilton than they do in Toronto, as you know, Matt. I mean, that's always the linchpin is how come the Argos, who are the best team in the East, even though they lost the Tiger Cats this week, how come the Argos can't draw, and how come there's not much more interest in the CFL? But I think people have taken interest in and notice of how effective Rourke has been from day one of the season this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And he has some road games to play back east, which I'm sure will only grow the legend if he keeps playing like he's playing.
Hopefully the CFL will do a solid job of marketing him when he comes to town. And that's one of the key things. And hopefully TSN will do the same.
Wonderful stuff, John. Thank you for this, my friend. We'll let you get back at her. Avoid the construction, okay? And we'll catch up next Monday.
They're just throwing hammers at me. It's okay.
I was going to say, it sounds like a nail gun there.
See you later.
Be well.